Detroit versus everybody. Detroit versus everybody. Detroit versus everybody. Detroit versus everybody. What's up? What's up, YouTube world? Hey, listen. Wanted to come and talk about something. I have a lot of live streams scheduled and wanted to come in a real measured tone because I have all these topics that I want to talk to you guys about and get feedback on and engage with you, talking about what do you want to see, reviewed. I want to talk about things that have really impacted your life. I've got all these topics that I want to come out here and talk to you about. The one topic I don't want to come talk about is the one that is driving this topic today. And that is one I had to cool my jets on for a couple of days here, pun intended, because I was livid, and I am hoping that what's happened to Rage in Nature and Games, Grant, welcome, brother. And I was hoping to not have to do this, and I really, Monday night after the Lions-Jets game, which I have to talk about, I just have to talk about. It's going to be therapeutic for me, but I also have to address something. There's some controversy out there that I want to weigh in on it, and I just had to let a 48 hours go by before I started commenting. Grant, I love that you're on here, brother. So many more to come, and I love hanging out with you guys. So listen, we got to talk about that Lions-Jets game, and I'm not a sports commentator. This isn't a sports channel by any means. I'm a Detroiter, though. I've been a Detroit Lions fan for a lot longer than any of the Detroit Lions that are on the team have been there, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I had to let 48 hours go by and cool off a little bit after that disastrous game. I mean, first of all, not only was the game a disaster, but those commentators, I don't know who they were, but they're terrible. When they kept talking about being down 24 points when it was 31 points, I mean, get your math straight, right? I mean, that's embarrassing. ESPN, I mean, maybe that's why you're in trouble. You've got to get, how can I trust your stats when you can't do the math on the screen? So you know what? They get that together. Get your act together. First of all, that ticks me off. They're only down by 4 scores. It's worse, my man. It's worse. I mean, it's funny that I don't know. I'm not gonna rag on that too much. I know there was all sorts of promotion around the people that were commenting, and that is what it is. But listen, the reason I'm fired up is because of the absolutely abysmal performance, and I want to talk about that because I think there's plenty of poop to go spreading around. And like I said, the most important question I'm going to that I'm going to address here is Detroit Lions fans. Right. So right now there's some controversy a little bit, and this has come up in years before too, when Detroit Lions fans have booed the Detroit Lions team and players, and people are saying, listen, you're not real fans, and get off the Detroit thing and blah 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 blah. And I want to talk to you, and I'm going to take the side of it is okay to get off the Detroit Lions train. It is okay. You've been following the Patriots a long time. You want to be their fan. You want to jump on the Green Bay Packers bandwagon. I don't judge you at all. I'm not going to judge you at all, and I'm going to say it's okay. And I don't think you can jump ship and change loyalties and change love that easily. So it's more hyperbole than anything else. But I'm going to tell you why we know it's okay to be mad. But why it's okay to vent that frustration the way we do at those games, booing, coming down hard on players, coming down hard on coaching staff, coming down hard on ownership of the Lions. So I'm going to get to that, and I'm going to hopefully make my case here. But I got to talk first with some of the things that are just ticking me off. And holy smokes, I hope I don't pepper this thing with 4-letter words. And I'm drinking here too because I might do a little screaming. Listen, but I'm going to try to be nice and measured about it. Listen, first of all, I think it's so funny that people are coming out after that game being like, listen, there were a few bright spots. There were a few bright men. That interception to start the game, that was great. And, Galladay with the forced fumble and recovery. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Sure, we can pick some stuff out. But here's a story. I remember I watch a lot of survival TV shows. That's obviously a lot of inspiration for a lot of the products that I check out here in the Panda Research Institute. And I remember watching an episode where they were hiking along. These guys are hiking along out in the middle of Alaska, I think. And the guy finds some bear scat. And he's like, listen, dudes, the bears eat these berries and they don't digest them, so you can pick the berries out of the scat here and eat them. And he's doing that and eating them and blah blah. And then it's like minutes later, he's just puking his guts out. Hey, Rojas MD, what's happening, my man? And he's like, and the other guys with him are like, oh, that's gross. That's so disgusting. You know what? Trying to call out some of these good plays, some of these good efforts in that kind of overall performance is absolutely picking the berries out of the scat. Don't pick the berries out of the scat. Let's not focus on the scat covered berries. Scat berries. Scatty berries. Forget it. There's no silver lining on the thing. There's no silver lining, except for the fact that things might change. Things might have to change after that, right? So we know that they got brutalized. We know that there were no Detroit Lions fans left at the end of the game. That there was no one but Jets that were crowding the railings and chanting Jets. We know that ESPN got fed up with airing the game and just switched over and cut the feed. We know all these things because we saw it. And I was in 2015. I was in Detroit at Ford Field for the Arizona Cardinals game, the one where Matt Stafford got benched for throwing fewer interceptions in that game. And I left that game early. I went into Detroit. Went to Ford Field. Came into town for that and left early. Right. So I get it. I was ticked and I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch that game. I couldn't watch this game, but I forced myself to do it because I had to. It's early. Long season might win a game. Jake, oh, I love the eternal optimism, man. Browns are questioning picking Mayfield over Darnold. I think, yeah, they should be. But you know what? Let me put it this way. I don't think Darnold's the superstar you think he is. I think they were just playing a scatberry team. So anyway, let's not focus on the berries and the poop, right? So let me just talk about first of all coaching and the lack thereof. The fact I know people are saying, hey, Patricia showed no emotion. Patricia wasn't talking to other coaches and the offensive coordinators and the defensive coordinators and the players and blah blah. And he was doing his own thing and he looked frumpy. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with all that. He didn't look the part. He didn't look like he cared. I mean, I like the fact that he threw the challenge flag on the catch that wasn't a catch, whatever. So he showed signs that he might be better at game management than Caldwell. But you know what? In my work, when we hire new people, you train them, you give them all this information. What's happening, Kathy? And one of the things I always tell people is take this information and make it your own, right? I'm not expecting you to be an automaton. I'm not expecting you to be me and do it the exact same way. Here's the information. Here are the rules that we have. Here's some tips, right? Go out and show your personality. Let it shine through. To me, it looks like the issue is that Patricia wants to be Belichick. And the issue to me is that he is masquerading as Belichick, trying to look frumpy like him, look brooding like him, look like unapproachable because he thinks that works. And the issue is that he should make it his own. He's not the same age. He doesn't have the same record. He doesn't have the same track record that Belichick does. And so to make it your own, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you show up in a suit or khakis. I don't really care. I don't really care. Trubisky did look good. I mean, he looked like freaking Superman compared to Matt Stafford. So my issue is I don't know that that's Patricia because, he came in and he wanted to work the Lions, the team hard and all this stuff. But I think he's a little insecure and wants to be like, hey, this worked for Belichick. Well, and that does. I mean, I would argue that does work for Belichick for all sorts of reasons. But if you aren't that person, let your own personality come through, right? People want to play for a person. And they wanted to play for Caldwell. They didn't play very well, and Caldwell didn't reciprocate by managing games very well or demanding very much. I mean, he was pretty good with moral victories, and he was pretty content with not getting beat too bad. And so that's not good coaching, in my opinion. But Patricia seems to have this identity crisis. I think that's the problem. Patricia has this identity crisis, and he thinks if he replicates the Belichick look, feel, emotion, swagger, all that's going to manifest itself in Belichick-like results. And I don't think it does. I don't think it does whether you're being trained as a salesperson, if you're being trained as a customer service person, as a pastor, as a teacher, you've got to make it your own. You just can't follow like some sort of formula, some sort of recipe. And so this is where it, and the reason I don't think it works is because of this. For many months now, as the Lions have been in preseason and training and whatnot, the rumors have been that Patricia. First of all, let me just back up. I didn't want Patricia. Go back and check my videos. I wanted, um, I wanted. Now I can't think of his name. Um, the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. There we go. I wanted Josh McDaniels, and I wanted him because I thought the issue was tapping the potential of our offense. I wanted Matt. I did not want Matt Patricia. I wanted Josh McDaniels to come. I wanted him to bring someone who had his, kind of ethos on the offensive side. I wanted him to keep Terrell Austin because I thought he did a fine job, and I thought, man, now we're tweaking. Now we're tinkering with the parts of the team that need to be tinkered with, right? Armchair coaches unite. Heck yeah, baby. There's nothing like quarterbacking Tuesday morning. It's a fine job. It doesn't pay quite as well. Yeah, Cooter. Well, you know what? I'm hoping the offensive coordinator doesn't have the name Cooter for a lot longer, Jake. But listen, so I wanted McDaniels. I mean, I was on the record about that, and I guess who knows what would happen. Part of me is wanted McDaniels just because of a little bit of the lack of head coaches. Floodland 99, brother. East Coast is going to be Floodland pretty soon. Love that you're on the channel here, bro. But the fact that the Patriots were so reluctant to get rid of McDaniels, right? They made the play, and McDaniels burned a lot of bridges, turning down the Colts offer. Says to me something about McDaniels' value. It says to me that a storied organization like the Patriots realized that they could not let McDaniels go. You know what they didn't do? Is they didn't make that offer to Patricia. They didn't. Hey, Grant, what's happening, man? They didn't make some sort of ridiculous offer and promise and package available to him. They let him go. So at some level, they were okay with that, and that kind of tells me a little bit, but doesn't tell me that he's not going to be good. But I would have loved to have gotten rid of Caldwell a year early. There were other candidates I thought the year before then that we really needed to jump on, and we didn't. And it is what it is, and we've got Patricia, but he needs to kind of grow into his own skin. Now, the issue with me on Patricia is, like I said, it was over the preceding time here where they have been training. The rumors have been that Patricia has been working the Lions players hard, a little bit like high school or college workouts, and to kind of turn some of the veterans against him a little bit. But he kind of went like this remember the Titans type of thing where he just made them run. He made people draw passes, run. And I don't know, sounds like a little bit of like old school football that I think this is going to work. We're just going to be more physical. We're going to have better endurance. We're going to just be kind of a more conditioned team than the other team. And we're just going to kind of I'll play them on physical effort. And the problem is that we didn't see any effort. So if the Lions were, had more endurance, more stamina, more muscle, more speed, I didn't see it. It looked like they were tired and they didn't give a rip. And I know people are talking about, hey, maybe he's lost the locker room and these guys just don't care. And, I'd say they played like that. But after hearing how hard he pushed these guys and the fact that they looked weak, tired, with no effort, no emotion, that seems to me that they didn't work hard enough, but it just seems to me that is a total mental checkout, right? Because you have been pushed harder than other coaches. A lot of coaches just, right? I mean, redshirted and here, run the play, and everyone kind of half-asses it. And it's just more about kind of the process and getting the calls down right and all that jazz. But listen, the fact that he actually had him kind of pushed physically and that didn't manifest itself in any way in that game is very troubling. Very, very troubling. And that's where it comes down to, and, I'm kind of getting to my long-winded point about why it's okay to be very upset, is that players are hired guns, right? I mean, I'm not saying that the fans are the 12th man. I don't really believe that stuff. But the fans are here because they choose to be here, right? The fans are on board because they choose to, because we're emotionally involved, because we're in love with the team. It represents us. It's part of our history. It's where we grew up. It was something we did with family or parents, and we went to games, and and our money and our effort and our attention and all those things flowed to this organization because of passion, right? And so that's why we're here, and that's why we're upset. But as a player, you're a hired gun. And here's my issue is that when you are paid to do this, and I get it, people are saying, well, it's their job, they should go out and produce. Um, you know, I'm not sure that think that maybe they should have a great time or really super enjoy it. But when you are hired to produce, you produce. And if you can't produce, what I want to see is that excitement, that passion, that spark, the desire to become, the desire to love of the team. I want to see both. I mean, I want to see both, but ultimately, when you're getting paid, um, you know, league minimum at half a million a year, or whether you're paid 25 or 17 million a year, whatever, right? You got to produce. And I'll be honest, you can be smoking Jay Cutler, and as long as you're throwing bombs and crushing out yards and producing touchdowns and putting up fantasy points, then that's all great. But when you are not doing any of that and also not showing any care or concern about producing that, that's where you got to fall in one of those camps. Either show me a give rip or produce. I'd love to see both, but you got to do one or the other. Here's my example. I don't think Anquan Bolden wanted to be in Detroit. I know he didn't want to be in Detroit because he didn't want to come back. He wanted to be near his family south here. So it wasn't really about the Lions or any disrespect or no love for the Lions. It wasn't where he wanted to be, in my opinion, right? But that guy produced. For single digit millions. I don't remember what he got paid. I think we offered him one. I can't remember if we offered, Lions offered him a 2 million or something to come back. That guy produced. I mean, he had value above his cost to me. I really liked him because he just he did his thing. He was emotional about it, but he wasn't all rah rah Detroit. He wasn't all like Lions for life, right? I mean, he spent his career somewhere else. He was a hard gun, and he did his job. He did his job, and he sacrificed, and he made efforts, and he made plays, and he put himself out there. And he had some passion too. I love that, right? But ultimately, he produced, and that was what I expect. And if you want to go sit in the sidelines and smoke a cigarette and read the latest Spider-Man comic issue or something while the play is going on, I don't care. But if you go out and produce, Marshawn Lynch is like that. He just seemed to be disconnected. But when it came time to run, he read it and he ran it. On the flip side, another person I really like is Nate Burleson, and he's going to be an extreme example. He came out and he was a wide receiver, and he did all right. I mean, I don't know that he's one of those guys that you'll remember for his production as much as a lot of others, a lot of wide receivers that are on the team right now. But he was the epitome of passion, and is, right? He's not even on Lines anymore, but he did spend his career there, and he loves it. And you can go watch. I reenacted his draft speech there. I mean, the guy loves it. I mean, he's got a company called Lion Blood, for crying out loud. He doesn't live in Detroit, but he is a Detroiter, right? He's a homer. He loves this team. He was a spiritual leader when he was on the team, right? He fired the team up. He was one of those guys who's would have gotten an MVP award, but not most valuable player. He would have gotten a most valuable person, right? Because he just was one of those guys that was a leader, a mentor, an example. He brought energy, he brought charisma, he brought dedication. He lifted a lot of guys up, right? And so to me, Nate Burleson is a guy who is on passion. And when he doesn't produce, I forgive it then, right? I forgive it because he gives a rip. And so I love Nate Burleson. I loved Anquan Bolden, for totally different reasons. And my point here is that you do one or the other. You do both, that's great. You're going to be a legend. But if you do one or the other, you're okay in my book. Now, the problem is that on Monday, there was neither, right? There was no passion. And again, I'm not gonna scatberry pick here. For some of the people that are like, well, this was, he had a good night and he had some yards. It's a team. I'm not no moral victories tonight. Not on that game. Not on that game. That was not a picked up flag on a pass interference call that could have swayed the game. This was just an all out beat down. Beat down. Embarrassing. And let me tell you another story. I want to tell you a story here. I grew up in Detroit and I had a buddy of mine. This was late 90s. And Lexus had come out with a car called the Lexus IS 300, a wonderful little car geared towards the young professional. And at the time, I remember seeing an interview with a car designer from GM, and he was talking about how horrible the Malibu is. And I totally agreed, right? But he's like, listen, the new Malibu's coming out. It is designed from the ground up. The way the designers wanted it. I can tell you it's like nothing like you've seen before. It is gorgeous. It is it has sexiness, it has curves. It's going to appeal to a much younger crowd. The materials are second to none. This car is putting European cars on notice. This is what they were saying, right? And I told my buddy, listen, GM has some swagger right now. I know that the current Malibu sucks, but check it out. Check it out. I know you want to get this other car, but I'm a Detroit guy. My father worked for an automaker, right? I had a lot to be thankful for and grateful for to the automakers, the industry there, the town. And you know what? The Malibu came out and it was a scatberry. No, it wasn't the scatberry, it was the scat. Maybe it was better than the one it replaced, only because the one that replaced was such a piece of crap. But premium materials? No. Innovative design? No. Something that will appeal to a younger demographic? No. What did it put the European car makers on notice? Not even close. Not even close. And what I would say right now is that 1999 Lexus IS 300 or 2000 IS 300, whatever he ended up getting, it was a phenomenal car. And I would say that the materials and the fit and finish on that are still better than the equivalent cars from GM. I mean, it's just, it's frustrating. And I tell you this story because it's like the Lions. I have been apologizing and making excuses for the Lions forever, not just the last decade, right? Not the last couple decades, forever. I mean, it's always next year. It's always the next, it's the next draft class. It is the next coaching staff. It is the surviving owner, right? It's all these things point to up, and none of them ever materialize into anything. That's my frustration. That's the problem, is that I am sick and tired. I am worn out for being told that change is coming, and change comes in the wrong form, right? We get worse. I get people like Stafford. I like Stafford too. I think he's a good quarterback. But what's driving me nuts now, and I thought he was a top tier quarterback. I thought he's a top 5 quarterback. The problem now is that people are saying he is a top tier quarterback, but based on what? Based on what? On the stats? To be a top tier anything, you've got to play in the top tier. You can't tell me he's a Super Bowl quality quarterback if you never go to the postseason, if you never go to the Super Bowl. The only Super Bowl quarterbacks out there, by definition, the Super Bowl quarterbacks, right? These guys, even though the Super Bowl quarterbacks had some bad weeks last week, right? And but they're still Super Bowl quarterbacks. That's just the nature of it, because you don't have to be the best quarterback and have the best stats to win a Super Bowl. You have to have a team. You have to have a gel. Things have to come together. You have to have a click. You've got to have a click for a season, and that's what does it, right? No one player, right? We had Calvin Johnson. We had the best running back in the league. I think the best wide receiver. At one point, I thought we had the best quarterback in the So we've had all these things, usually not at the same time. But what we don't have is anything to show for it. And so here I am. I'm making excuses. I'm saying, hey, wait for the new Chevy Malibu. I'm saying, when I said, wait for the Buick Regal, I heard this new one is going to be amazing. Or what's the other one that I was told? Oh, the Chrysler 200. Chrysler 200 imported from Detroit. Yes. Oh, it's an import level car, import quality car. No, it isn't. I'm not saying it's a terrible car, but if you're going to have the gall to call someone out, if you're going to have the gall to say, "Hey, this is a BMW 3 Series competitor," then you better make it. You better make sure that you're not only a competitor, but you're 10% better, 25% better. I don't know, but the fact is, when you come out and say, "Hey, this is going to be the year," right? The Lions haven't earned it. I didn't make that up. Valenti mentioned it. 97-1. The Lions haven't earned the benefit of the doubt on this, and I agree, right? You can't tell me, "Hey, it's a long football season." You can't tell me that, "Hey, this is a playoff quality team that had a bad week." You can't tell me this is a Super Bowl team that had a bad week, because they've always been mediocre. They haven't even they haven't even taken the division, right? So the fact is, they are not the best team out of the 4 teams in the division. They're not even the best team. They're not even maybe in the top half this year. I will say that, right? They are clearly in the worst team in the division right now. Who said it here? Rojas MD? Trubisky looked good. He looked good. Rookie quarterback. The guy's got an arm. He's got to dial it in. He's got to figure out how to get those deep passes dialed in a little bit. Lead the receiver a little more. He looked a little short on him, not because of strength, just because I think he needs the time and the experience to kind of dial it in, make it second nature. But they look good. They are on their ascendancy, and they looked and they came out disciplined, organized, passionate, and they produced. They lost, right? They blew a 20-point lead. Don't say that's an equivalent of what happened on Monday. That was not the equivalent of blowing a 20-point lead. The Bears came out the Bears came out with the assumption they were going to get trounced, and they lost. They lost by a point. They were competitive with a chance to win. They exceeded expectations, right? Did the Lions exceed any expectations? Or did they just absolutely crap on every expectation, on every dimension of every expectation that you had, right? For a while now, the Lions have been putting together the pieces. They have been putting together the pieces. They gave Stafford a huge contract. We have a couple of receivers who should be able to catch balls. We did all these things, and I'm not a football expert. I didn't agree with stuff. I was shocked in the draft when Quinn took Ragnow. I thought for sure we were taking someone on the defensive side of the ball. I was sure. I was shocked. I even Instagrammed and I said, "Hey, in Quinn we trust," because I didn't see that coming. But I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust that you are saying, "Hey, protecting the quarterback is the most important thing," and I trust you. You know what? There is no more trust. You don't get the benefit of the doubt, and you don't get to say "trust me" anymore when there is nothing to base that on, right? The fireman who's put out fires and rescued people, when he puts his hand out, I'll grab it because I expect to be pulled out of the hole or out of the car, right? But you don't get to be that guy who says, "Listen, I haven't done it, but here, take my hand," right? Bet your life on my hand, because you don't get the trust or the benefit of the doubt. What you're giving me is hold my beer. You think blowing a 20-point lead is bad? Hold my beer. Not trust me, right? You get none. You earn it. You blow up the team the next game, and then you say, "Trust us." Man, I saw some interesting numbers breakdown. If you're not on the Detroit Lions podcast Slack channel, check that out. Lots of commentary, lots of venting. It's nice to commiserate with some people. But the Detroit Lions podcast, if you get on the Patreon side, they hook you up in the Slack channel. It's just nice to be with some people who are expressing what you're expressing, and that's where I want to. That's where I want to get to here. This whole thing, this whole rant, was to come to this moment to say, I get it. I get when people are saying, I was at that game and I booed them. I was at that game and I left early. I was at that game and I'm burning my jersey. I am done with the Lions. I am picking a new team. I get all of that. I get that. Not only do I not blame you for being at that level, but I want you to embrace it, because here's what I'm saying. I know in the past, in Golden Tate, and I like the guy. He's a guy with swagger. In in previous seasons, and I think Eric Ebron, but deservedly so, talked about the boos from the crowd, talked about kind of the turn of the fans, right? And here's my thing: is the fans don't owe you that to you, right? You have two things to produce to me: either production, measurable production, or passion, right? You've got to deliver one of those two things to me, preferably both, right? When you provide one of those, you get my support. When you provide neither of those and you collect a paycheck, you are just a poser. You are a piker. You are there for the check. You are attendance-based compensation. You are an ABC player to me, and you don't get rewarded for that. I will turn on you because the reason is the loyalty rests with the team, not the player. All these players are temporary stewards of the Lions name, right? My loyalty and my fandom goes to the team, which is going to outlast everyone that's on that team right now. It's going to outlast me. It's going to outlast everyone that owns that team. My loyalty stays with the team. And when you trash the name of the team, when you offend the team, when you offend the players by not producing or not caring, then don't expect the support of the fans. In fact, I think it's our duty, and that's what I'm saying. I think it's our duty to make sure that people don't think they can get away with that. Because I want you out. I'd rather have those guys in preseason who are busting their hump, busting their nut to scrape for a couple inches, right? Because they're being passionate about it and working their butt off, even if they're not producing, because I'd rather have that on the field, right? Because if we're going to lose, I would rather have a little bit of that moral victory, because there is no moral victory here. I would rather say, listen, those guys are killing themselves. We just don't have the talent. We don't have the size. We don't have the personnel. We don't have the intellect. We don't have the schemes, whatever. I don't care, right? I don't care. In years past, we have said, when people talk about rebuilding, it is basically the way to excuse performance. But it's never a way to excuse passion. And so it's okay to say you're done. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if people, because I'm been there, right? You know how hard it is to root for a team that never wins, that goes 0-16. I watched every game that year thinking, not hoping that we were going to win a division, right? Or come out ahead on that. All I wanted to see was one win. Do you know how frustrating it gets? And some of those games were pretty close, right? Do you know how frustrating it gets to get to the last game and then close out the season with 0-16? I'm telling you what, right? That should be the point where most people leave fandom, right? That's when most of the people should burn jerseys, pick a different team, because you don't deserve, right, that kind of disappointment. But I will say there was effort from that team, man. There were a lot of the players that and love that were on that team, and they were working their butt off. And you know what? And they came pretty close, and sometimes the ball just didn't bounce their way, metaphorically. So that wasn't even the worst for me. It was Monday. It was watching that effort. That was the worst. That was the worst point of being a Lions fan ever for me, ever. You know how disappointed I was? I wasn't just disappointed. I wasn't just disappointed and angry, right? I was heartbroken over it, because I have been making excuses forever on this. Next year, right? I'm not expecting you to jump up. I'm not expecting you to come back with a Super Bowl trophy after going 11-5, right? But I'm expecting you to go 12-4 or 13-3, right? I'm expecting there to be improvement, and if that's the trajectory you're on, then we will get places, right? We'll put the curse behind it. But when you come out and you have a decent team, and we say, hey, we're gonna tweak, we're gonna tweak around the edges, make this a little bit better, and you come out and you are just terrible, when the wheels have fallen off, when the base has collapsed, right? When the fans have no choice, they have an obligation to boo, right? That's on you. That's not all the fans. That's on you. Produce or care. Produce or care. So listen, man, that was rough. That was rough. So anyway, listen, I get it. If you're a Lions fan and you agree, I'd love to hear from you. If you're a fan of another team, that's felt the same way. I'm just giving you my permission to vent. I know people are disagree with that. They're going to say, listen, if you're not a fan, get off. It's kind of a little bit like, you don't like it, get out of the country. You know what? Maybe Maybe it's going to be better if I have my Sundays back in the fall. Maybe it's just more time to do reviews and, explore my passions of, homemade almond milk or uh, pointillism or crochet or I don't know, body paint. Maybe maybe that's great. Maybe the fact that the Lions are coming apart is just more time back in the old time basket for me, in the old time bank where I can go and explore some other passions. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe that's the benefit of it. But listen, if you're a fan, it is your obligation, it is your right to be upset, to express that, and to threaten the people that are threatening the team with that expression of frustration, right? With the boo, with the thumbs down, with the bag over your head, man. We did it. You remember those? Remember those years? You remember those years? That was all right. That was what we did. That was part of what helped catalyze some change, right? So it's got to happen again, because after that, it's not a tweak. There are fundamental problems across the board. Like I said, if you're on the Slack channel, some interesting numbers broken down. I think they give some credence and some evidence to how badly the offensive schemes are. I'll let you go and read those on your own, but check it out. If you have not subscribed to the Detroit Lions podcast, do so. I think it's DetroitLionsPodcast.com, but I have a link in a lot of my videos. Thanks to you guys, thanks to all of you guys, we are sponsoring them this football season. Those guys love the Lions as much as we do, and and God bless their work, because they're doing God's work right now. They have to scat, bury, pick, and that is a terrible position to be in. It would be great if we were Patriots fans and the podcast job was all wine and roses and putting ourselves on the back and saying, where can we optimize? How many more Super Bowls will we bring home? That would be awesome. Not us. This is the dirty work, and I guess that's what we do as Detroiters. We're authentic blue collar dirty work. Yeah, Scott, I hear you, man. There was a time when everyone in Ford Field had bags over their head. Fire Millen signs. I remember that. It just the perfect season, 0-16. I remember all that stuff, man. It was terrible. I don't want to be there again. But I'm saying right now, after Monday, it is a distinct possibility the Lions go 0-16. It's a distinct possibility they deserve it. I don't know that they will do it, but they are the worst team in the NFL right now. Right now. Yikes. Get it together. Sell the team. I don't care. If it's the St. Louis Lions or the Orlando Lions, you know what? My loyalty is going to stick with the Lions, but not to the players, not to any of the individual players, not to the coaching staff, not to the ownership. It's to the idea that there is a team that is supposed to represent us and has a storied history that brought us in and did things, and we are attached to that, not the players. So anyway, end of rant. Thanks for sticking with me. Guys, we got lots of other live streams. Stay tuned. They are not going to be rants. They're going to be stuff that I want to engage with you on. Grant Cole or Rojas MD. We've got some Fiat 500 stuff coming up here. It's been heavily requested. I've been working on it. Some interesting insights I think I'm going to share about my Fiat coming up, so stay tuned for that. But love you guys. Thanks for making it possible not only to keep doing this channel, but to sponsor and help out those guys that are working as hard as you are, I am, and a lot of other blue collar workers just like us. So hang tough. I want to sign off in a different way today. How about God bless America. Long live the Republic. Works for Such. Peter Von Band out.